Welcome, everyone, and we're delighted to welcome back Abbe Wright. She is the Assistant Director of Creative Development for Penguin Random House, Penguin Random House's content marketing team. And each time Abbe visits us at the Mark Twain Library, we all go away with a reading list a mile long. So I hope that everyone got through their book list from last time and are ready for more, because I know tonight Abbe will enthrall and entice us with many new titles, not only for ourselves, but also to give us holiday gifts. So we are also recording this evening's program. So if you forget any of those titles, you can easily go back and watch it again. And also please tell your family and friends that it's going to be on our YouTube channel next week. Just prior to her work at Penguin Random House, Abbe was contributing editor at Glamour and an assistant editor at Oprah, the Oprah magazine. She has also written for The Cut, Metro, Modern Bride, Elegant Bride, and Philadelphia magazine. She was raised outside of Philadelphia, attended Denison University in Granville, Ohio, and she has moved back to Philadelphia from Brooklyn, New York. So before I let Abbe begin, I want you to just remind you to remain muted during Abbe's presentation. And then we'll have questions at the end, and you're welcome to unmute yourself to ask your question, or you can type it into the chat and I'll read it off to Abbe. Either way is fine. And I'd also like to say a special thank you to Jen Wostrom, who is Abbe's aunt, for introducing Abbe to the Mark Twain Library and for making this evening possible. So welcome back, Abbe. We appreciate you coming back to the virtual Mark Twain Library.
Thank you so much. I cannot believe we're a week away from Thanksgiving. How did this happen? I feel like time is on warp speed. And everyone has heard undoubtedly about supply chain issues. So I better get talking so that you guys can get shopping, hopefully at your local independent bookstore, or bookstore.org is another great place to get books. Or of course, penguinrandomhouse.com. I will at the end drop some of our gift guides into the chat so that you can have access to those as well. But I just want to start on a very broad note. So these are sort of crowd-pleasing books that really would be great for anyone on your list. And I'll start with a great cookbook called Cook This Book by Molly Baz. Molly has been a TikTok sensation this year. She is so fun, and this book is very voicey and written in, her voice, which is just so fun and friendly. So she really feels like, your best friend who's kind of like, hey, grab those spuds, let's mash them. She really feels like a friend in the kitchen. And she also lays out really foundational ways of cooking. Relatively soon. So you can learn a little bit as you go. And for anyone who in the pandemic has gotten acquainted with what a QR code is, whether you've gone out to eat and you have to shine your phone on this little box and it brings up the menu, she has QR codes throughout this book, which bring you to videos about that technique. So it's a really cool way to sort of, grab technology and cookbooks and sort of weave them together. So Cook This Book by Molly Baz. She is awesome. Another crowd pleaser is called While Justice Sleeps. And this is by Stacey Abrams. Yes, that Stacey Abrams, the woman who is killing it, fighting for voting rights in Georgia. Stacey is also a thriller writer. Unbeknownst to all of us, she has been writing under a pen name for so long, but this is the first book that is under her name. And it is a gripping...
Oh, you know what? It's being recorded.
legal thriller. Yep, it's being recorded.
Recorded.
That takes us into the halls of the Supreme Court. And we've got this young clerk, Avery Ken, who is clerking for this Justice Howard Wynne when he unexpectedly falls into a coma. And she needs to unravel the clues left by this justice, you know, taken through the shadowy streets of DC into the hallowed halls of the highest office and into harm's way. So we are cheering for our girl Avery. This is, you know, I think it takes a DC insider to write a great thriller that takes place in DC, and Stacey Abrams shows that she is multi-talented. I think this is a really fun book that would appeal to men, women, you know, people who love the law. So it's a really great book that will grip you from the start. Another one that's a crowd pleaser, probably more for the women in your life, is called Malibu Rising. This is by one of my favorite authors. Her name is Taylor Jenkins Reid, and she wrote the epic book 2 years ago called Daisy Jones and the Six, which, if you haven't read, feels like an inside look at a band like Fleetwood Mac. So Daisy Jones and the Six is so fun, kind of a look inside this band in the 1970s. But Malibu Rising is a look inside a family in Malibu. It's 4 children of this legendary musician. They're each sort of famous in Malibu in their own right. One is a surfer, one is a model, and they each have secrets to hide. And this book takes place at the end of the summer party. And so you know it's going to go down when the first sentence you learn that at the end of the party, the mansion will be engulfed in flames. And you have to figure out, how did we get here? So that is a really fun book. This was a read with Jenna pick. So anyone in your life that loves like a Reese Witherspoon book club pick, or read with Jenna, this is definitely right solidly in the kind of women's fiction genre. So I will go to nonfiction next. I think one of the most important nonfiction books of the year is called Empire of Pain by Patrick Radenkief. This book is brilliantly researched, and it follows the story of the famed Sackler family, which is one of the richest families in America, and they built their fortune on selling Valium and OxyContin, and they really became the catalyst for what we know as the opioid crisis today. So this showcases this drama that infiltrates every generation of the family, and how this super elite family can act with complete impunity. So it's a real connection, not even a dotted line, but a straight, bold line from naked greed leading to one of the greatest health crises in modern times. So I think this is a really, really important book that shines a light on something that we don't talk about and that we really should. So that is my nonfiction pick that truly anyone would enjoy reading. I think they will be riveted by. But the subject matter is frustrating and infuriating at times, but that's what makes a great book. So I will touch on a great crowd pleaser for kids and for parents. If you're a grandparent, if you have a father-son relationship in your life, I highly suggest picking up The Bench by Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex. This is her first children's book, And it is a loving look at a relationship between a father and son. And what is a modern relationship between a father and son? So this would be a perfect book for any dad or kid on your list. It's beautifully illustrated and will really, touch your heart. So definitely, I think that's a crowd pleaser. Another crowd pleaser, I am myself not a science fiction fan, but I could not put this book down. It's by Andy Weir, and it is called Project Hail Mary. And it opens, and we meet an astronaut, Ryland Grace, who has just awakened from a coma to find all of his crewmates dead. He has no idea what has happened before, but he knows that he must complete this mission that he's on alone in order to save the Earth from disaster. So talk about a crazy premise to start a book. But Andy Weir has such a great way of, just involving great fiction and the contents of his own creativity with actual science. And so he's like, okay, if my mass is this, I must be in the Earth's atmosphere, and I only weigh, I'm weightless. And so he's doing a lot of scientific calculations in the margins of his own writing, and you can really see that shine through. So I absolutely loved this one, Project Hail Mary. So great. Now, another crowd pleaser, you could give this to your dad, your brother, your sister, your best friend. Colson Whitehead can do no wrong in my book. He is the absolute best. And his latest novel is called Harlem Shuffle. So you'll remember that Colson Whitehead he wrote The Underground Railroad and The Nickel Boys, two of 2016 and 2018's biggest books. But here we are. This is kind of a thriller, kind of a bit of a mystery. We meet main character Ray Carney. He's doing his best to try to run his furniture company and provide for his family. He lives in Harlem, but cash is tight. And so when his cousin brings him the odd piece of jewelry, he doesn't ask any questions. And luckily, neither does the jeweler he brings them to. But he's navigating this slippery slope and finding it hard to lead this double life of trafficking these stolen jewels and also running his family-owned furniture company. So this is just immensely entertaining. And I think Colson Whitehead is one of the greatest writers of our time right now. And if you're looking for something funny, this is definitely a crowd pleaser. It's called Yearbook by Seth Rogen. So Seth Rogen, you may know, he's an actor, he's a writer, he's a producer. This is his hilarious collection of essays where he talks about, his grandparents going to Jewish summer camp, weird interactions with famous people. There's a few stories in there about doing some drugs. He really gets very funny and very intimate about his own career. Like how his mom drove him to stand-up comedy gigs. So anyone in your life that loves comedy, that loves Seth Rogen, that loves, the movies Superbad and Pineapple Express, this is a great, great, great book. Plus, I think that essays are some of the best to give to people because it's not so much pressure of like, here's this book, read it and write me a report. An essay collection is so friendly because you can read one, you can put it on your bedside table. It's the perfect little thing to read before bed. I find I can only make it through a few pages these days without falling asleep. So that's why I love essay collections, is because they feel really friendly to the recipient and not like a 600-page challenge. Okay, so my last crowd pleaser before I move on to some more focused topics is All In by Billie Jean King. So All In is Billie Jean King's autobiography. It is this honest and really vulnerable look at the life of this legendary athlete. It not only talks about her achievements on the court, but also all of her wins in what she fought for outside the court. So this is just a really great autobiography for certainly any tennis lover, but really any historian or lover of culture, certainly of the 20th century. Billie Jean King was an incredible athlete and really made huge strides for women. So that is just a great autobiography. Okay, so we're gonna get a little more specific now. I want to tell you about, this is strictly fiction. These are for the fiction lovers in your life. And there'll be all sorts of kinds of fiction. But my first recommendation is called People We Meet on Vacation. So this is by Emily Henry, who wrote the book Beach Read last year. And I think, and also data has shown, that people over the last 2 years have flocked to romance. No longer is romance the Fabio covers that we all have thought about for so long in the grocery store. Now, romance books are some of the most diverse collection of authors. They write about all different types of love. And the only thing that makes it, quote unquote, a romance is that it has a happily ever after. And I think with all that we've lived through in the last 2 years, it's sometimes great to know that you're gonna get a happy ending at the end of a book. So People We Meet on Vacation is exactly that. This centers on Alex and Poppy. They are best friends, despite the fact that they have absolutely nothing in common. But each year, these polar opposites go on vacation, and that has happened every year until 2 years ago, when they ruined everything. But somehow, Poppy convinces Alex to go on one last trip together, and now she has 1 week to fix everything or lose the person who means the most to her. So I will let you pick it up to find out what happens, but it's just such a delightful book, and I absolutely love this one. So another fiction pick is called Great Circle by Maggie Shipstead. This is historical fiction. Basically, this novel will take you on a journey that covers over a century in time and circumnavigates the globe. We meet Marion Graves, who as a girl becomes obsessed with flight. But when she tries to fly, at every turn, this patriarchal society denies her the access to fly. So she decides to go over their heads, literally. And a century later, we meet actress Hadley Baxter, who is cast to play Marion in an upcoming Hollywood production. And as she immerses herself into this character, she actually finds that their lives are colliding in unexpected ways. So this is great for anyone who loves historical fiction, who loves a braided narrative where you meet two different characters from different time periods who are connected somehow. So I just adore Maggie Shipstead. She wrote the novel Seating Arrangements, which is one of my absolute favorites. Okay, my next fiction pick comes with a bit of a trigger warning because it is set at the beginning of the pandemic. So if you don't want to read anything about the pandemic, that's totally fine. You can skip this one. But I think it's incredible that this author has managed to take what has happened, to all of us in real time and churn out some incredible fiction. So the book is called Wish You Were Here by Jodi Picoult. And Jodi does a great job always of taking what's in the headlines and fictionalizing it and giving us some real fat to chew on. So we meet Diana and Finn, this couple from New York City. He's a doctor, and they're getting ready to go to the Galapagos Islands on vacation. She is hoping that he will propose in the Galapagos and is really looking forward to this, this trip of a lifetime. But right as they're about to leave, this virus has been taking over the world. And Finn, our surgical resident, says that he needs to stay back in New York and work. The hospital is totally overcome with patients and he needs to stay back. But he urges her to go on the trip alone. And she says, you know what, we can't get our money back. I'm going to go. And it's a disaster. I mean, everything is shutting down. She's on the last boat to the Galapagos. There's no more boats coming back. She's stranded. Everything is going wrong until she befriends this local family. And it actually gives her an opportunity to reflect and reevaluate her relationships and her goals. And she wonders if she will still be the same person when she gets back to New York. So Wish You Were Here. It's definitely a very prescient and timely novel, but I think it does a beautiful job of sort of digesting the time we are all living in. So with that, I will turn to my next pick, which is one of the, I think, biggest award-winning novels of the year, and it's called Matrix by Lauren Groff. This book centers on nuns, but that doesn't sound cool, but this book is actually really cool. We meet Marie de France, who is this young girl. It takes place in the medieval times, which also doesn't sound cool, but I promise it is really cool. Marie is cast out of the royal court and she's sent to England to live with nuns in an abbey on the brink of ruin. And she ends up, of course, becoming very good friends with these nuns. She grows fiercely protective of them. And it really is this incredible story of early feminism. And I won't spoil too much, but it's a total trip. And this book might win the National Book Award tomorrow. The National Book Awards are tomorrow night, and this book is nominated in the fiction category. So we shall see. But it was a New York Times bestseller. Lauren Groff also wrote Fates and Furies, which was a huge bestseller when it came out, probably in 2015, I want to say. So this is her next novel after that, and it's absolutely perfect. Oh yeah, question? No. Okay, we're gonna end with another, just one of the best books of the year, in my opinion. This would be great for a friend, a brother. I think it crosses both genders perfectly. It's called Clara and the Sun. by Cassio Ishiguro. And we meet Clara, who is an artificial friend, kind of a robot, kind of a doll. She's an artificial friend, and she observes the humans around her from the store shelf that she happens to be perched on. She looks at the store shoppers and then the customer who chooses her to be their companion. So it really is this gorgeous, wild, weird story about human nature and love and loneliness and empathy. It's an absolutely stunning tale, which has a bit of course, you can probably tell, some magical realism, because we don't really ever get to hear the inside thoughts of a robot artificial friend. So if that doesn't intrigue you, I don't know what will. But Clara and the Sun, just a really stunning book. And finally, I'll give you a little historical fiction to end our fiction roundup. This is called The Lincoln Highway by Amortols. Now, we love Amortols. He wrote A Gentleman in Moscow, if you'll remember. And this is another just immersive dip in history, this time through 1950s America. So we meet Emmett Watson, who has just been freed from jail, and he plans on taking his younger brother to California so they can both start a new life. But then two of Emmett's friends from jail escape, and they have their own plan for Emmett's life. So this is an absolutely wild and very cool story that takes place on the road. And I feel like it has that rhythm of a road trip novel. So I'm thinking of this as kind of the new Kerouac, but Amortols does such a great job of just immersing you with detail into the time period that he's placed you in. So that does it for my fiction roundup. I am going to touch on some great memoirs and biographies. This is nonfiction for those truth seekers in your life. My first kind of favorite one on here is All About Me by Mel Brooks. Now, we all know Mel Brooks. He's a comedy legend. This is his memoir where he shares his life story. He gives us behind the scenes anecdotes and photographs. I mean, Mel Brooks is the best comedic storyteller there is. And this memoir is really pure joy from beginning to end. So anyone who wants to know more about Mel Brooks and his remarkable life in show business, check out All About Me. Another funny gal, Phoebe Robinson, her memoir is called Please Don't Sit on My Bed in Your Outside Clothes, which is good advice for everyone. This is her third essay collection, and each essay feels like you're talking to your best friend, if that friend is brutally honest, acutely wise, and very, very funny. So she has all sorts of hot takes. This is good for any millennial in your life or Gen Z. Phoebe is awesome. And this is her third book, and I can't wait to see what else is coming from her. So for any art lovers out there, I recommend 1,000 Years of Joys and Sorrows. This is by the artist Ai Weiwei, and he tells the story of his remarkable life and career told upon the backdrop of modern Chinese history. And he contrasts his own life story with his father's journey as one of China's most celebrated poets. So it's a look inside the remarkable mind of this artist, his process, and how he learned to create art in a place where creativity is routinely snuffed out, as well as a look at how his father did the same thing through poetry. So Ai Weiwei, one of the greatest living artists of our time, 1,000 years of joys and sorrows. Okay, for any moviegoer in your life, for any comic book fan, we've got all of the Marvels by Douglas Wolk. There are Marvel Comics fans, and then there's Douglas Wolk. He takes it to another level. He took it upon himself to read all 27,000 plus comics that make up the Marvel universe. You know, it's got to be over 1 million pages. And he's distilled it into this entertaining and revelatory look at American culture as told through the Marvel universe. So it's this gorgeous, huge, fat coffee table book, which really looks at the mutants, the monsters, the monarchs, the mystery, all that takes place in the Marvel universe. So of course that's Black Panther and Spider-Man, I think. Don't quote me on that. But yeah, the Marvel universe is wide and expansive, and this is the be-all end all of the Marvel universe. So anyone in your life who has a coffee table, who loves Marvel, they need this. Okay, finally, I will touch on, well, I've got 2 more in the nonfiction space. The first is called My Time Will Come. It's by Ian Manuel. And Ian was 14 when he was sentenced to life without parole. And he spent 18 of those years in solitary confinement. He managed to survive in prison by writing poetry until he was freed through the Equal Justice Initiative, with help from his victim who advocated for his freedom. So Manuel's story is incredible. It's a real in-depth look at our criminal justice system. It's a redemption story. It's a look at the resiliency of the human spirit. And it's really a memoir of crime and punishment and hope and redemption. It's incredible. And the foreword is by Brian Stevenson, another amazing author. So this is a must read. I think this book is very, very timely and will, you know, help change lives, help change opinions about our criminal justice system. And finally, I will end on a very fun note. This book called Tacky by Rax King. This is, I mean, if you're anything like me, I gravitate towards hilarious, tacky things. And this is a love letter to the worst culture we have to offer. It's this unrepentant, laugh out loud look at some of the tackiest things that we love. The Cheesecake Factory menu, America's Next Top Model, toe rings, Guy Fieri, how all of these things have shaped us personally, generationally, culturally. It's a hysterical look at some of our nation's tackiest cultural artifacts and why we're better because of them. So I just think it's the best funny book. Give it to your best friend, the one who loves a tacky earring. and it's a crowd pleaser for sure. Okay, so I'm moving on from nonfiction, and I'm going to touch on books for kids and teens. So my first pick for smaller children is Change Things by Amanda Gorman. We all know Amanda Gorman's powerful poetry at the inauguration, but this is a beautifully written and illustrated reminder of the power of our voice, and a lesson that even the smallest of us can make a difference when we advocate for what we believe in. This is such an inspiring book. Amanda Gorman wrote it, and the message is so inspiring for children and adults who will be taught to embrace love and kindness and continue to use their voice to speak up for what they believe in. So I just adore this book. The next book on my list is by a Beatle, Sir Paul McCartney. This is called Grand Dude's Green Submarine. So Paul McCartney has switched careers. He's now writing children's books, and the Grand Dude is his main character. So in this Green Submarine, I wonder where he got that idea. We go for a ride with Grand Dude and his 4 grandchildren as they explore his greatest and latest wacky invention, the Green Submarine. So the submarine takes them on some wild adventures until they find themselves in some trouble. And then who comes to the rescue? None other than Nan Dude. So this is a great reminder about the powers of imagination, as well as a really, really loving tribute to the special bond between grandparents and grandchildren. So I absolutely love this one. For any grand dudes and nan dudes out there, this is a must read. Okay, now if you're looking for something to do with kids in your life, may I suggest the Astronomy activity book for kids. So this is for ages kind of 5 to 7, that zone, and it's written by NASA scientist Aurora Lipper. And she teaches kids about space and stargazing. You get to explore planets and constellations. There's over 90 activities that are, of course, educational and fun. And all of these activities, of course, help kids improve their math and reading skills. So it's got space, it's got math, it's got English, all sorts of things. I learned a thing or two, like a lot, flipping through this. I know it's for ages 5 to 7, but anyone can learn about the planets. It's a really, really, really fun book. Okay, another great book if you're looking for a sort of collectible, very special gift to give for Christmas is Jan Brett's The Nutcracker. So I remember going to see The Nutcracker as a little girl, and Jan Brett is, of course, one of the best children's book illustrators of our time, and she has turned this classic story into just a beautiful picture book. You know, each page is filled with vibrant, detailed images, and it will be a really fun memory creator, I think, to go back to and reread every holiday season. So I absolutely love that one. If you're looking for an older teen in your life, I suggest Wing Feather Saga. That is like a collection of 4 books, and it's a best-selling series. It follows the Igby siblings, who are 3 gifted children who have to protect lost legends and treasures from the evil pursuit of the fangs of Dang. So this is really a great set of books for middle grade, sort of think ages 10 to 13, 10 to 12, fantastical and fantasy without being too scary. And each book has a map of the kingdom and these great illustrations. So it feels really fun and immersive for middle grade kids. Okay, if your teen is into a little bit darker, scarier stuff, may I suggest Mine by Delilah S. Dawson. This book centers on the new girl at school. Lily and her family have just moved to Florida in search of a fresh start, but the apartment that they move into has a previous tenant who doesn't want to leave. It's a ghost. Lily can sense this ghost of the girl who lived there before her, and she has a feeling that this ghost will not stay hidden for long. So definitely spooky, kind of a hide under the covers, terrifying read, but I think teens are really drawn to that. So another great book for the teen in your life is called Beasts of Prey by Ayana Gray. And we meet, this is sort of sci-fi fantasy written by a young woman of color. And it focuses on the Shaitani, which is a vicious monster that has stalked this city, striking fear in the heart of its citizens. But when fate brings together these two Black teenagers, Coffee and Econ, they create this alliance to hunt down the Shaitani. And the farther they go, it's harder to tell whether they are the hunters or the hunted. So Beasts of Prey, a really, really stunning book from an absolutely young and very, very talented new sci-fi writer, Ayana Gray. Okay, my last two for teens, I can't go any further without mentioning Amanda Gorman for a second time, because she has written a book of poems called Call Us What We Carry. And this is a new collection. It definitely captures the spirit of the poem that she delivered at the inauguration, The Hill We Climb, but these are even more breadth of poems, like, you know, shining a light on the grief that many of us felt during the pandemic. Her poetry is really a beacon of light and hope, and I think any teen or young person, or any person, honestly, would love this new collection from her, because she's a really talented young woman. And finally, if your teen, your young adult, loves a little romance, may I suggest The Holiday Switch, which totally feels like if Love Actually was a young adult novel. This is by a person named Tiff Marcello, and looks at this high school senior named Lila Santos. She's looking to make a little extra money this holiday season, and so she gets a job at a local inn, and she likes the job until her boss's nephew, Teddy, also gets hired. These two get under each other's skin. They're constantly bickering about everything. But when they accidentally switch phones one afternoon, they realize that they've both been hiding a little something. So this little holiday switch might turn these foes into something more. Anyway, this is a very, very fun read for anyone of any age, but it's supposed to be for young adults. I happen to love it, but okay. And finally, if you are looking for a great stocking stuffer, a great journal, activity book, I will recommend 30 Days of Creativity by Johanna Basford. This is the woman behind some of the most popular adult coloring books of all time. But this is a great way for anyone who's looking to kickstart their creativity to encourage the artist in all of us. It's got prompts, it's got coloring pages, it's got blank pages for you to do whatever. It's a really beautiful way to have kind of a guided way to foster creativity. So I love this one. Then the other one I will mention is totally self-promotion because I helped write it. It's called Book Club, a Journal, and it is the perfect book for anyone who's in a book club. Whether your meetings are organized or if it's just you wanting to keep track of your thoughts about books, this is a great journal for tracking what you've read, how you felt about it, if you gave it 5 stars or 1 star, did you like the cover? Who were the main characters? What questions would you have for the author? It also includes fun icebreakers for your book club if you're gathering together, if you want to play some games before you dive into conversation. And in the back is a list of crowd-pleasing books, pages and pages of books that are perfect for book club. I curated the whole list, so it's just going to sound like this, but written. So that's Book Club, a Journal. It's by the website that I used to run called Read It Forward, and it's just a really great gift for any reader. Finally, my last gifty journaly book is for anyone who's like a recent grad or a job seeker or trying to figure out their next step in life. It's called You Are Here, parentheses, for Now, by Adam J. Kurtz. So this is a guide to finding your way and figuring out what you want for your life. And furthermore, how to be okay in the not knowing and in the messy gray area in transition. Adam combines essays and illustrations, and it's not so much live every day as if it were your last, but more how to remain present in the present and not future trip or think too much about what's ahead or what's behind, but really savor today and figure out what's next. So it's a great read for anyone who's in transition. So I think with only 10 minutes left, I want to turn it over to all of you. Oh, I do want to just mention one last cookbook because I think those are so fun to gift. They're the most delicious thing because it combines like an activity and it's layered with the author's recipes and then the stories behind them. I think context, especially with food, is so beautiful. None of us eat in a vacuum. And what I love about cookbooks is I get to read the author or the chef's memories about this dish, and then I get to create it for my family and create my own memories. And it becomes this beautiful layered tapestry of food and family. And anyway, this cookbook is called That Sounds So Good by Carla Lolly Music. I love when you're talking about a recipe and someone's like, that sounds so good. Well, everything in this book sounds so good. This is the perfect guide for the home cook. It's organized in what I think every cookbook should be organized in. It's not appetizers, mains, desserts. It's mood, situation, occasion, because this author knows that being able to cook something for yourself is wonderful and possible and fabulous, but then what do you cook for when you have people showing up in half an hour and you weren't expecting them? She divides this cookbook by impromptu dinner parties and, kind of feeds every kind of hunger, which I love. So she's fabulous. She's the newest, coolest chef out there, in addition to Molly Baz. So I just adore this book. Please continue to ask me to speak. I love to talk about books. So this is such a treat to be with all of you.
Well, we can't wait to have you back again. So thank you. And thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful holiday. Happy shopping. Thanks, Abby.